We spent a lot of time preparing for it, that's for sure, and we were thrilled to launch it, and it exceeded our expectations. I mean, outstanding league, great partnerships, incredible members, and it was a fantastic year.
You knew what was coming, but a lot of folks who maybe got to go to Eugene for the first time as visiting Big Ten fans weren't sure exactly what to expect. What kind of feedback did you get from those who made it out to Autzen and watch either a football game or then go inside the basketball arena to watch a basketball game for the first time?
Well, it was fun to welcome all of our new Big Ten friends, and we saw quite a lot of them. You know, our fans were impressed with how Big Ten teams travel. Not only in football, obviously we saw a great number of visitors to Autzen, but you know, when Nebraska volleyball fans show up to Matthew Knight Arena, it's impressive. And what was fun for us is those visitors stayed a few days. So they visited the Willamette Valley. You know, they trekked over to the coast or, you know, did a few wineries. So we got to see them for a few days.
Well, it's not a bad place if you got to spend a couple extra days after watching some sporting events. And if they did get to go watch your football team, they saw one of the best in the country. How do you even really kind of encapsulate the year that football team had, dominating throughout the regular season, winning the Big Ten championship? The game at home against Ohio State was maybe one of the greatest environments we've seen in college football in multiple years, and then being part of the college football playoffs.
Yeah, it was a fantastic year. You know, Autzen is a special place, but it was even taken up another notch this season because of the first year in the Big Ten. And as you mentioned, the buzz around hosting Ohio State started well before the season even started. And to have a game like that live up to the billing was a pretty spectacular setting, and then, you know, to carry that on throughout the year for an undefeated regular season, and as you mentioned, to get a chance to go to Indianapolis and win a Big Ten football championship was very memorable. So yeah, it was a fun run.
When you think about coaches that have had success so early in their career to the level that Dan has had it, you often think of coaches who kind of carry themselves in a little bit of a brash or cocky or beat your chest kind of way. Dan is literally the exact opposite person when you get to sit and chat with him. What's most impressive about him, not just as a coach, but as a person?
I think first and foremost, you know, he cares about everyone. He cares about our organization. So, you know, the care factor is high. The second thing is he's a continuous learner, right? He's a guy that's always seeking for feedback himself on how can we improve, what can we do better, whether it's student-athlete experience or, you know, whatever. And that's, you know, humble, caring, and continuous learner are great traits for a quality leader.
And that's obviously a huge reason why he's had the kind of staff stability that very few top-level programs have. How nice is that from an AD chair?
It's outstanding. That's extremely important to him. Is, you know, getting the right people in the right places and developing leaders from within, because that continuity and stability for what we're trying to do long term, sustaining it is really hard, and that's a key factor.
And while you think about Dan's success, he's in the relative infancy of his career. And then on the opposite end, you have Dana Altman, who just continues year after year to develop players, win basketball games, go back to the NCAA tournament. Is there ever a point where you stop kind of being amazed at the energy and ability that Dana has to continue to motivate his teams to play at these levels?
It is impressive. Every single day, if you go to practice, the energy is super high, and Dana brings a lot of that energy. And I think we probably sat here last year and talked about the same thing. It is so impressive that what you see in November, how it develops into March. And we saw that again this year, right? He just kept, you know, trying different lineups, doing different things until he landed on something that he knew would give us a chance in March.
When you watch, do you see not just the coach in him, but how much of the teacher do you see in him?
Very much a teacher, very much a teacher, and he's rooted in the fundamentals. He has his pet phrases that are really kind of form his philosophy, and he really drives that home. And I think that's why you see at the end, the identity of a Dana Altman team always comes around in February and March.
Like Dana, Kelly Graves has been at this for a while, but like Dana, Kelly also realizes if you want to get back to where you want to be, the NCAA tournament, you have to be adaptable. He went into the portal, got some really good players, and after a couple of years hiatus, gets this team back to the NCAA tournament. What was the best thing about what the women's team was able to do this season?
Well, I think, obviously Kelly's done a phenomenal job and built something really special in Eugene. And he'll be the first to admit that he was a little slow to adapt to this changing landscape. But when he did, we saw that we could get right back there. So it was fun to see the energy back in Matthew Knight Arena around women's basketball, and take another step towards where we want to be.
In terms of some of the Olympic sports, in the spring side at least, softball has an unbelievable run, regular season champion. You have the Big Ten Coach of the Year, one of the best players in the country, getting through regionals, being able to host supers. Baseball team has been terrific all year long. I know a lot of Big Ten universities have great Olympic sports and are sometimes defined even by them, by one or two. It seems like every time we look at no matter what sport it is, Oregon is in contention in its first year inside the Big Ten. How proud does that make you as kind of the overseer of all these different sports inside the athletic department?
Extremely proud. One of our key pillars is broad-based excellence. We sponsor 20 sports and we want to compete in all 20. We want to give every one of our 500 student athletes an exceptional student athlete experience, and part of that is competing at the highest level, being a member of the Big Ten, having a chance to compete for Big Ten championships, because if you can win Big Ten championships, odds are you can make deep runs in the NCAA tournament.
And among all those Olympic sports, I think most people would say if you were to pick one that defines Oregon, it's the legendary track and field and cross-country programs. We saw unique events that we were able to broadcast this year on the Big Ten Network like we've never seen before. And of course, we see the excellence that we've grown to know in developing not just NCAA champions, but Olympians as well. How do you look at where that program fits and how it does, in fact, kind of define Oregon a little bit?
Obviously there's a rich tradition, and unbelievable success, from national champions to Hall of Fame coaches to Olympians. So yeah, there's a great pride in our community, not only for Oregon track and field, but for how our community, our facility represents the United States in track and field, and even the world to some degree. So it's extremely important to us. We have an incredible fan base, and as I mentioned, a rich history and tradition. And it's a special. There is a magic to Hayward. That's why they say it, Hayward Magic, and it's really special to experience.
I know there's not one key, but as the athletic director, how do you look at all these different student athletes that are outside the two main revenue sports and make sure that their experience in this day and age of NIL and revenue sharing is not affected in a negative way? Yeah,
that's a great question, and obviously with this shifting landscape, that's extremely important. 500 student athletes with an opportunity, many of which their vehicle to go to college is through an athletic scholarship. We want to make sure that we're still providing that opportunity, because that degree is very meaningful. This experience is very meaningful, and when we talk to student athletes, whether they're here now or they're 10 years removed, they reflect on how important this opportunity is for them and what it means for their future. And so we are still we're spending a lot of time on a small portion of these student athletes, but we are still laser focused on the whole.
Rob, I know you want to be in the position where you're trying to back up phenomenal years with other phenomenal years. But do you ever feel any pressure or stress that after a year like you just had, first year inside the Big Ten, that now everybody expects you to do the same thing next year and in the following years as well?
Absolutely. The bar does get raised, and and so that energizes us all, right? We love to compete. We're going to be in a whole new environment on July 1. So, we have a strategy, we have a plan. We'll implement that plan and we'll execute it to the best of our ability, and our goals will remain the same.